Welcome back. This is lesson 7 in my series on how to fly an FPV multirotor. In this session, we are going to handle the one major thing we haven't handled yet. No, it's not flips or rolls, it's landing. If you've been practicing the drills we've done so far, you pretty much can fly wherever you want to fly, but maybe you haven't quite figured out how to set down without crashing. So this is not so important on the simulator, but it's very important in real life. So let's get on with it. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take off, and I'd like you to fly slowly forward, low to the ground. And I'd like you to lower your throttle so that your copter begins a slow descent, just like that. And you can raise it again and fly around and try it again before you hit the ground. Don't hit the ground. Just establish a glide path, if you will, from a given altitude. Lower your throttle so you just start to fall, not even that fast. So you get close to the ground, and then take it back up again. Okay, so here I am, I'm flying forward, and I'm going to lower the throttle. That's too fast there. So if you're dropping too fast, raise your throttle and push back up again. And just like that. That looks like a good landing approach to me. I'm going to raise the throttle and go around and do it again. Now you want to establish a good clear line. You see, I'm not lining up like this on the car, right? Because if my landing approach goes a little long or anything goes wrong, I'm going to be in trouble, right? So I want to establish a nice, clear, straight landing zone, especially in the beginning. Here I go. I'm going to lower the throttle until I get a nice, slow descent, just like that. Now, if I land like this, if I land like that with a real copter, I've got way too much forward speed. The copter's going to flip over. On the simulator, like I say, it doesn't matter. So now we're going to manage our speed and our altitude at the same time. And when you can do that, you're ready to land. So let me take off again. And I'll set up another landing approach. And what I'm going to do is, here's my landing approach. I'm going to move forward. And I'm going to use pitch to adjust my speed. So I'm moving forward just the tiniest bit. Just moving forward the tiniest bit. And then I'm going to use the throttle to adjust the descent rate. So I descend just the tiniest bit. And I should touch the ground and just slide to a stop. So you're just going to combine the tiniest bit of forward speed with the tiniest amount of descent. And you'll come right down to a nice landing. Let's take off again. And try it again. Okay. So now I've got almost no forward speed. Well, that's a little bit. Not much. Let's see, I don't like coming straight down because I don't know necessarily what's underneath me. I wouldn't normally like to land like this. I would normally like a little more forward speed because then I'm sure I know what's underneath me. At least I wouldn't like to be that slow, that low to the ground. Now, if you keep practicing, you can actually bring it in and hover. And I've said that hovering is very hard to do FPV without a lot of practice, but you can kind of hit a hover at the very last minute before you touch down and arrest your rate of forward speed, your rate of forward travel. So here I'm moving forward, and I'm going to pitch back. I'm going to adjust my descent rate with the throttle, pitch back a little more as I get close to the ground, and there we go. Just as you find that moment where you've come to a stop and you're about to start drifting backwards, you may be low enough that you can just drop the throttle and you can land. Now there's two important things that we haven't talked about here. One of them is disarming. With a real copter, you're going to disarm immediately after you land, and you may do that with a switch or you may do that with a stick. We're not doing that in the simulator, we're just dropping the throttle. Depending on how your copter is configured, your props may stop when you drop the throttle. That's all a matter for you to work out with whatever flight controller you've got, and we're not going to touch on that, but it is important to mention it. Disarming after you land should become a habit. Your copter needs to be disarmed when you're not flying it for safety. Okay, so you drop the stick, you land, and you disarm, and that needs to just be one sort of smooth motion, okay? The other thing to mention is ground effect. Now, FPV Freerider is a good simulator, in my opinion. It feels very much like flying a real copter to me, but one thing it doesn't have is ground effect. Ground effect happens when the thrust from your props it hits the ground directly. You know, when you're flying up in the air at a great height, the thrust from your props is pushing against the air, and that's where you get your thrust from. But as you get down to the ground, the thrust pushes on the ground, and you basically get a lot more thrust. And so what will happen is that as you lower the throttle, as you get close to the ground, instead of settling in smoothly on the ground like it does in the simulator, the copter will tend to kind of bounce and bobble and will stop descending, almost as if you raise the throttle. Okay, so you'll need to feel for that when you actually go fly in real life. As you lower the throttle and establish your descent, there will come a point where instead of descending smoothly to the ground, the copter will kind of just bobble and wobble and not land. And that's the time when you need to drop the throttle and finish the landing. Okay, that's called ground effect, and it doesn't seem to be simulated at all in FPV Freerider. Okay, so those are the basics of setting up a landing approach and landing. And it presumes that you are going to have a relatively long landing strip that you can land on. I know that probably seems counterintuitive since a quadcopter can hover and can drop straight in. You're almost never going to land from a hover when flying FPV unless you have a camera that can tilt down and look directly below you. When you're flying FPV and you're landing, right, if I wanted to land on that Jeep, if I fly directly over it, well, now I can't see it. Okay, well, I'll just look down. No! Bad, see? No, you don't want to do that. So what you're almost always going to do is you're going to approach your landing point. You're going to approach your landing point from far away and sort of fly up to it looking forward and approach it slowly. Okay? You're not going to drop straight down on it. And especially as a beginner, you're going to want to give yourself lots of room to not overshoot, okay? If you find yourself running out of room, throttle up and go around. Take another pass at it, okay? No shame in that. All right? So that's the first beginnings of your landing. Just come in slowly, pitch back to reduce your speed, lower your throttle to establish a slow descent, and as you get close to the ground, cut the throttle and disarm, although we're not disarming because we're in the simulator. All right, that's the end of this lesson. I'll see you next time.